Well, how you doing, folks? This is Robert of the Concerned Forum, and I hope that you're having a pleasant weekend so far. I hope that you are receiving all the possible blessings that the weekend could lay upon you. Now, let's do a little chit-chat, shall we? We've had a lot happen. We've had our, what does he always call it? The fake media. Well, in spite of how I feel towards him, I won't say fake president, because he really is our president. A lot of what he says is fake. So let's just say that Mr. Trump went across that big lake to the G20 with all of the major economic powers, supposedly, on the globe. And I tell you what, it felt so weird, because I caught a little tiny bit on the, as my British friends would say, the telly, and it really bothered me. Number one, I'm one of those people, I cannot abide watching Donald Trump on television for only a certain period of time. I'm sorry, okay? I'm a native New Yorker, so like most native New Yorkers, we go way back with the Trumps. So I don't sit up there and just, when he comes on, just constantly stare with my mouth agape, hanging upon his each and every word. Now, I know that there are some people in this country that apparently that's what they do. And that's supposed to be 35% of us. So now my question is, as a person who considers himself to be not too bright, but bright enough to read and write, and how the grandma used to say, and do a little figuring, how am I supposed to feel knowing that I got about 35 to 38% of my fellow citizens that seem to be hooked into this, what would you call it? This, I don't know, not Kool-Aid, but Trumpomania. How's that? And that, you're in the Trumpomania if you think that everything that this guy says is right, no matter what the facts will show you. And brothers and sisters, that's a very bad place to be. When you get to the point where you're going to follow behind someone, even when all the facts are telling you that what he's saying, it just ain't so, but you're still going to blindly pursue this guy, follow behind this guy, I think that you need to talk to someone. But as far as calling you ignorant, stupid, foolish, I'm not going to get into that. Some progressives do. I don't. Because that's the wonderful thing about America. We're all entitled to our beliefs. But just like the guy said, we have to keep in mind that we're not entitled to our own facts. And therein lies the danger. Because it would seem that the Trump campaign, now I feel funny calling it the Trump administration, because God knows this guy is still campaigning. He hasn't stopped. He won the damn thing, about 6 months ago, and he's still at it with the campaign. That's not good for America. And to be quite frank about it, that's not good for the rest of the world. Now, well, let me take a dive right quick into something that I know everyone out there should be concerned about. Whether you're 8 or 80, blind, crippled, or crazy, you should be concerned about what these Republicans are going to do to the health care bill. Now, you got to realize something. This Republican Party, not my dad's Republican Party, that was back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. But this Republican Party, the folks that we're contending with nowadays, they have a whole different idea about what government should and should not do. Now, I know Republicans have always been hesitant when it comes to any kind of large government programs. The difference, however, is that the Republicans that we have now, they are actively against our government. One of the reasons why things in this country have been seen to go so badly over the last, say, 2 decades or so, is because, especially in the so-called red state of America, you keep putting people, and yeah, this is particularly for you folks out there in those so-called red states, you keep electing people that don't believe in government. So why do you think that when you elect people who, for all practical intents and purposes, they're telling you they hate government, they don't want government to do a damn thing except kill people? And I'm serious about that with the military. Okay? That's the only thing that they want to spend a dime on. Okay? The military. But in terms of helping their fellow citizens, their fellow human beings, they're like lost in the sauce, Jack. They don't have a clue, and quite frankly, they don't really care. Now that's the majority of them. Now, of course, you have Republicans from like New Jersey, New York, upstate New York, New Hampshire, Maine, places like that, Upper Michigan. Now, I guess we're talking about blue state territory now, right? Okay. They were the last ones to kind of get the word, okay? That word being, hey, the heart of the Republican Party is no longer in the Midwest and New England. The heart of the Republican Party, since the early 80s, has moved. And that heart is primarily down south in the red state of America. And because of that, you have people that see America and who have seen the last 150 years from a decidedly different point of view than I would say your average American. And I say average American because remember, the majority of people in this country are either Democrat or they are independent, okay? The Republican Party is a minority party, believe it or not. But they've been able to do so well because, and unfortunately, we Democrats have had a hand in this. You know, that game of gerrymandering, chopping up districts, and what have you. And over the past 30 years, there have been too many times when Democrats in the State House, for example, and even in congressional districts, they cut a deal. They have cut deals with Republicans because they wanted to keep the power of incumbency. And so the Republicans essentially said, well, look, we'll let you have this, and we're going to take that. Now it's coming back to bite us in the hind part, okay? That's how come the majority of people that vote in a congressional election vote Democratic. But even still, I think, how did that go? Something like about 1 million more people voted for Congress people, but the Republicans have the majority. That's because of gerrymandering. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. But anyway, that's one of the main problems that you have now. Now, you got to say Republican from New Jersey. Well, chances are he would be what we used to call moderate Republican or liberal Republican. My dad's buddy, John Lindsay, he was mayor, 2 or 3 times here in New York when I was a kid. And he was a liberal Republican. As a matter of fact, he would be considered now a Bernie Sanders type Democrat if he were, in politics today. So you got to keep in mind that these political things change. Okay, just like the Democratic Party used to be the party of Jim Crow, of lynching, of white supremacy. Now that's changed. That changed in the late 60s, actually in 68, with the Nixon election. And now you have the Democratic Party. We are still the party of working class America. Unfortunately, we have allowed our message to get convoluted. But we're working on that. That's going to be fixed. But getting back to the thing about health care, the folks that you have in the Republican Party, the majority of them, they don't believe that government should help people take care of their health needs, which is crazy. Because we're the only industrialized nation on the planet where you have a political party that has that mindset. But you know what? I think that's going to be due to change here over the next 2 years. Because necessity is the mother of invention. And I also believe that you're going to have more and more Democrats step up to the plate and say, look, the hell with all this nonsense. We're going to have single-payer health care like every other civilized country on this planet. And me, myself, I'm not voting, and I'm a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat, and I am not going to vote for anyone that's not going to stand up for single-payer. And I'm going to let it slip out a little bit. I'm seriously considering a run for Congress myself next year in the district in which I live. So we'll see. But that is what Americans need to fight for. Now, Trump made all these promises about he wasn't going to touch this and he wasn't going to touch that. And yet, this guy gave his blessing to that bill in the House that the Republicans cooked up, which is supposed to, what, drop about 23 or 24 million people? Drop them from having any kind of health insurance? And this, again, to you folks in the red states, this is the guy that you said you trusted more than Hillary Clinton. Listen, I've had my problems with the Clintons, okay? However, when you try to make a comparison between Hillary and Donald Trump, there was no comparison. And anybody that said there was or tried to make it out like there was, that's insanity. All right? That's another thing that those of us who are branded as Democrats, liberals, on the left, progressives, whatever. That's one of the things that we have to stop doing. We have to stop tearing ourselves apart. I'll give you an example. Now, there's this beautiful sister out there in the Midwest. Where is she now? Ohio, okay? And she was like the main spokesperson for Bernie Sanders. Well, I forget, her first name is Nina. Lovely girl. Oh, she is a good-looking woman. I'm not trying to be sexist, but she is. And the most attractive quality about her, she has a mind that is razor sharp. And I think that that's glorious. She's an African-American woman, and I'm quite sure you folks have seen her from time to time, especially last year with the elections going on. She said something, and I think that this is just a case of misunderstanding. She said the people in her area out there in the Midwest, Ohio, Michigan, Flint, Michigan especially, they're not worried so much about this collusion with the Russians, that every day, almost literally every day, it's becoming more and more obvious that that's what the Trump campaign was doing. And she says that people are more concerned about their day-to-day issues. And I guess she was mainly aiming that at the Democratic Party structure we have, basically warning Democrats to not concentrate so much on the Trump collusion with Russia that they forget to take care of the local everyday needs. She's right. Another person also is making that same point. What the hell is his name? Jimmy? You see him on YouTube all the time. He's with TYT, Cenk Uygur. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Great guys, a great network, and they do great work. But this guy, Jim, he has the same, how should I say, forceful comment that the young lady Nina has about the Democrats getting too wrapped up in the Russian thing. And I just want to say, I love both of them. They're beautiful. I hope to meet both of them in the near future. But, and I don't know, maybe sometimes my years doing intelligence in the Navy with DIA shows. But yeah, Donald Trump and his campaign worked with forces in Russia to secure his ability to win the election over Hillary Clinton, because Putin and the Russian oligarchy in general, they didn't like Obama, they didn't like Hillary. And it was like a perfect timing for them to take a strong contestant out the box. And yeah, in my opinion, I believe there was some type of collusion. Okay, all the years I spent in intel, I don't believe that the CIA, NSA, DIA, and the other agencies are getting this wrong. In our intel, we know what we're doing. And just to make a point, Intel was not the reason that Bush Jr. launched that disastrous foray into Iraq. Him and Cheney were told the truth. What they decided to do with it, that's a different story. But you can best believe if you have 17 American intel organizations / agencies that say that, yeah, Putin was working very hard to try and bring about the elevation of Donald Trump and the downfall of Hillary Clinton. If our intel says that, you can believe that, quite frankly. You know, this is not the 50s or the 60s, okay? It's an entirely different world. And all you have to do is listen to what Trump says, listen to what his sons say, and it really paints its own picture, okay? And, I mean, let's face it, knowing Donald Trump, and like I say again, as a native New Yorker, we know Donald Trump. We couldn't help but know Donald Trump. He claims to be the world's greatest self-promoter. Well, yeah, that's true. He is. That's one thing he's good at. And from the time I came of age, you couldn't turn the corner without something about Donald Trump, okay? And unfortunately, just as he has that great rep as a self-promoter, he also has this great reputation for being a liar and a fraud, so on and so forth. So I don't, to me, and I say this to my friends out there in the red states, you know, this is no biggie, okay? They were involved in some type of monkey business. His two top people in the campaign, what are they, under indictment? One is ready to come in and turn state's evidence. So we know, come on, all right? We know that with the Trump campaign, it was not kosher. Okay, that's the first thing. But the second thing, and this is what angers me, he spent all that time going to you folks in the red states, playing to your worst instincts. And I'm not trying to talk down to you, okay? When I say that he played to your worst instincts, all of us, as human beings, we have good, we have bad. A great leader knows how to bring out the good instincts in people, or at least he or she tries to do that. A dictator, an autocrat, that's someone that plays to the worst base instincts of people. I think probably because he sees the world through a very dirty, filthy mirror. And that's what he sees within himself. But, I mean, I'm not going to play amateur or psychiatrist. My thing is history and current events, okay? But, yeah, I think that it's a shame that he's taking so many people in red state America for a ride, essentially. We're into over, 6 months of this guy being in the White House. What's been accomplished when you get right down to it? Yeah, the economy's picked up a little bit, but he's just been there 6 months. That's, we're still working on the backwash of the Obama administration. Being the president is just like being the captain of an aircraft carrier or a battleship. Those things don't stop on a dime. It takes a bit of time to, turn the ship of state around. So that's why I say, if you think that this guy Trump is your savior, you're sadly mistaken. Even for you folks who claim to be religious, and I say claim, because I really am mystified how anyone who claims to be a religious person or a spiritual person could follow behind someone like Donald Trump. I mean, just forgetting about the various ethnic groups that he has basically denounced or held out for ridicule, not even taking into account the problems that he's had with his own sexuality in regards to how he deals with women that he doesn't like. This guy actually stands up and makes fun of handicapped people. And I don't see, I'm sorry, I just can't see how anyone can hold Mr. Trump up as any type of example of a national leader, a great national leader for a democratic republic, such as what we have here in the United States. Excuse me, I should say what we are fighting to keep here in the United States. I see this guy go to the G20 summit, and he lets his daughter sub for him. What's her name, Ivanka? I mean, come on. No security, no top secret security clearance, right? No any type of experience in terms of international relations, okay, government to government level. And yet he says, look, I'm going to catch this other meeting. You go ahead and you sit, you hold my chair. Wait a minute. We don't have a State Department? We don't have a Secretary of State? See, that's the type of thing that happens, and I hate to use this term, but just for simplicity, I'll do it this one time. Third world dictatorships, okay? It becomes a family affair. And no, please, no conservatives call me or, talk, oh, well, it was okay when Jack Kennedy did it. Well, you know what? Yeah, it was. It was okay when Jack made Bobby his Attorney General. You know why? Because Bobby had a law degree. Bobby worked in Congress for a United States Senator for a few years. Bobby ran Jack Kennedy's presidential campaign. So, yeah, Bobby knew what the hell he was doing. Thank God. Thank God we had him there. But that's another story. Now, you also have to start asking the question, what happens if these Republicans in the Senate give the country a health care bill that is so outrageous that it literally would cost 23, 24 million people to lose their health insurance? Now, some folks, especially on the right, they have tried to make this comment about, Bernie Sanders is, he's playing to hysteria, saying that we're trying to kill people. Well, listen, I don't believe in playing to hysteria. I believe in telling the truth from all the credible information that one gets, and then making pronouncements based upon that information. And if you have someone that's going to a doctor and they're able to go to the doctor because they have some type of health insurance. Okay, Obamacare. So they have Obamacare, and they're able to go to the doctor. Now, if because of some political changes, what have you, in the Congress, and they reach a decision basically saying, well, look, you, Ms. Smith, are going to be one of the 23 million people that will lose your health care. Now, I think that Ms. Smith should be very, very highly upset about that. And the reason she should be highly upset is because Ms. Smith, who has a particular ailment, and with that ailment, it requires her to be seen by a doctor on a regular basis. Sometimes it might even require her to have certain surgeries done. She'll be required to have, or she's required to take certain medications that her health insurance or her Obamacare has been helping her to obtain. Now you're telling Ms. Smith that, well, the vehicle that you used to see the doctor, to get a surgery done, to get your medication, you're not going to have that anymore. Okay. Now, what do you think the result will be? If the doctor, the need for a possible surgery, and the medication, those are the things that are giving her life, maintaining her life, I should say, right? Now, if she is no longer able to do that, I would ask a red state conservative person, you tell me, what will the ultimate result of her not being able to see her doctor, not being able to have the surgery when she needs to have it, not being able to have her medication? If she can't do those three things because her health care has been taken away, red state person who loves Mr. Trump, what do you think the result will be? I'm able to sit here and talk, and if I need to, stand up, walk around. I'm able to speak, and a few other things, because I have something here, oxygen, okay? What will the result be if I'm deprived of oxygen? Isn't it true that if I'm deprived of said oxygen, chances are I will suffocate, which will unfortunately lead to what I would consider to be a very untimely death. So why would you think that depriving people of the opportunity to see their doctor, get surgery when necessary, get their medication, and then they're suddenly told that they can't get that anymore? What do you think the end result of that will be? Yes, they're either going to get much sicker than they were, and if they continue on that path of getting sicker and sicker and sicker, ultimately they will no longer be with us on this side of the veil. And see, this is why I have problems with the red, a lot of the red state way of thinking sometimes. Some of the things, you talk about the heartland and down south, and I spent a lot of time in the South, and there's some good things about it. I really, a lot of it I enjoyed. But here, especially over these last several years, especially ever since we had Obama in the White House, I don't know. It's like critical thinking is a crime to be punishable by death. And that's not right. That's not good. We're in the 21st century, folks. Come on. Governments are supposed to look out for their people in things that those people can't do for themselves. We're not on the frontier anymore. This is not the 1870s or 1850s or 1840s. When a man and his wife would just go out into the wilderness and just start chopping down trees and building a cabin and plowing their own fields. This is a totally industrialized, high-tech world. And there are times when a lot of people are not going to be able to afford a huge operation or a certain type of medication, or their kids born with a certain disability that needs to be fixed, but they don't have the available funds to do that. That's why the rest of the world, they have a single payer system. And see, Trump sits up there and says, well, look, we'll make the Senate Republicans, we'll make them pass this terrible bill that only 17% of the population thinks is any good. Now, that's something else to think about. Blue state, red state, doesn't make a difference. Only 17% of the people in this country think that whack job that they're doing in the Senate, which they've already done in the House, is worth a damn. Why would you push that down people's throats just for the sake of saying, well, hey, I said I was going to get rid of Obamacare, and we did it. Yeah, man, red state folks, look, what Donald doesn't seem to understand, and what you folks need to tell him, is that we don't want victory at any price. Yeah, Donald and the Republicans can claim, yeah, well, we said we would get rid of Obamacare and we did it. Oh, sure, at the cost of what, 23, 24, possibly more, millions of people, of our fellow citizens? I mean, who in the hell could come up with this idea, well, look, we'll just tear down what we have now, and then later on we'll figure out a health care plan. No, look, we have to start being honest here, okay? You can't depend upon the Republican Party as a whole to do that. That just ain't them, okay? Hell, they stopped respecting unions, back in the 60s? Early 70s? Come on, they basically want to dismantle the whole government except for the Department of Defense, and that's just about it. They have dumped on everything else. They're even talking about messing with Social Security. And see, this is the thing about red states. That's what the guy was talking about. What's the matter with Kansas? What's the problem with red state America? You got to stop this thing about cutting your own throat. Okay? We're supposed to have some basic values as a democratic republic, as this grand experiment in democracy, as we've been called. Okay? Respect for the individual, the idea that, you know, we all have a right to vote, okay? That we have safety where we live, and that we can get help when we need it. That's basically what we're supposed to be about as a country. But all I have seen over the last few years is all this hate, this vitriol. And you know something? I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, I believe it needs to be said. Don't look at progressives, my red state friends. Don't look at us leftists. Okay? We are not the ones that inspired all this hate. All right? Now, we got some jackasses on our side of the fence. Okay? I grant you that. I mean, hell, no one's perfect. But in terms of trying to have a political, democratic government where you elect people that are supposedly going to the State House or going down to D.C. to do their best for their districts, for their constituents, okay, we haven't had anybody talk about, oh, well, you know, just like Republicans, one in particular, what's his name, King, out there in Iowa? Oh, he's a nasty little fella. God. Talking about seeing Hispanic kids with leg muscles as big as grapefruits and all this kind of, you know, this is madness. Worrying about if the baby born, if the name is Rodriguez or if it's Williams. You know, that's the kind of crap that we had back in the 30s with the Nazis, that kind of talk. Just like that goofy speech that Trump made when he first got to Europe, right? He went to Poland. And he makes this speech about the class of civilizations and all this other garbage. That's basically almost word for word the same type of thing that Adolf Hitler used to talk about, defending Western civilization. Well, how about defending the so-called values of Western civilization? The Enlightenment, where we came to believe that the rulers of the people had a certain responsibility to the people, and that people had a right to think. They had a right to their own conscience, how they wanted to live, whether they wanted to practice a particular religion or whether they didn't want to practice a religion at all. Those are supposedly Western values, but he didn't talk about that. He just talked about the great clash. You know, he reached back in history, I believe he was talking about a fight between Poland and, what was it, the Ottoman Empire. What was that, way back in the 14 or 1500s, I believe. You know, it's, folks, I guess what I'm trying to say, talking about America now, not talking about the globe yet, but just talking about America. Look, we live here, okay? World War II, a lot of guys and gals gave their lives really, so that this country could go forward and not be dragged into some kind of dark ages. And what Donald Trump has done from the time he has gotten into the White House, he is doing everything he can not to make America great, but he's done everything he can to make America alone, basically, so that we're basically off by ourselves. The only thing that him and I guess folks in his tax bracket, they'll be able to make their deals in different parts of the world. But in terms of us standing up for what's right, standing up for freedom, and I'm not talking about invading everybody and getting into their business, all right? Red state America, we've made some mistakes as a country, okay? Vietnam, that was a mistake. What happened in Libya, I think that was a mistake. God knows Iraq was a big mistake. But, you know, sometimes you can screw up. Maybe you thought that you was trying to do something good, but it just didn't work out. Well, I think that's a hell of a lot better than being the guy that just doesn't give a good damn. And see, the bad thing about Donald Trump is that not only will America not be seen as a stand-up for things around the world, he's going to have that same attitude about standing up for things right here in America. And see, that gets back to that point that Nina had brought up. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. But the point she made about we on the left not getting too and so involved in the Russian caper that we forget about the day-to-day lives of people. Well, I would like to make a point. Do you think, folks, and this is for everybody, not just you folks in red state America, but do you think that if we just turned our backs to all the crap that Trump and his family have been doing with the Russians, I mean, do you think that a president such as what we have in Donald Trump, a guy that's low enough to do deals with our adversary, do you think if we just turn the blind eye to all of that, that would help folks in the Rust Belt? That would help Flint, Michigan get clean water? I think, quite frankly, I think it would be just the opposite. Because if we didn't pay attention to the collusion of the Trump group with Putin's Russia, I think that not only would that not be helpful for the folks in Flint or for the folks in the Rust Belt, I think that it would be much worse. Remember, Trump is a guy that when he sees Putin, he says, I'm honored to meet you. Well, I'm not trying to just totally disrespect Putin. I mean, you know, hey, yo, horse, you got your own way of doing things in your crib. But see, his way, that's not our way. We have the belief that it's better, especially talking about nations, when basic freedoms are respected. Now, those same intel folks that have told Mr. Trump, yeah, it was Putin and his folks that did all this stuff, messing around with the computers, the hacking, all this good stuff. Well, guess what? These are the same intel folks that have been telling us for the last, 5 or 10 years about Putin having opponents. Well, put it this way. His opponents, they always seem to either fall off of rooftops or fall out of windows, or they get shot down in drive-bys, or they're getting poisoned. Now, I don't know, maybe some of these guys just have bad luck. But it does seem kind of coincidental that all these chaps have seemed to have been political opponents of what Mr. Putin was trying to do in Russia. And our president seems to be, boy love with this guy. And on top of that, he treats our regular allies, the folks that have been with us through thick and thin, he treats them like they have some kind of social disease. I find that to be not only strange, but frightening. Show me who you look up to, and you'll tell me how you're going to treat me. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, yeah, the Democratic Party, the organized party structure, they definitely need to get their act together. They definitely need to be on the ground. And Nina is right about that. They definitely need to be there in places like Flint, Michigan, and all those places in the Rust Belt. And as much as they would probably dislike my left-wing butt, they need to be right down there in Appalachia, down there in West Virginia, because those folks, God knows they need help. And she's right about that. And I respect her and I love her for saying that. But all I want to say is that we can do both. We need to do both. We have to do both. And we need to stop letting people get away with doing these false what's the proper term? Equivalencies, okay? I don't want to hear no more out of Trump and his people about Hillary. I got my own bones to pick with Hillary. But this last election, she should have been our president. No two ways about it. And it's just wrong for anybody, as far as I'm concerned, not to be able to see that. There's a lot of misery in this country. And I'm not going to just sit up here and just say, well, it's all the fault of the Republicans. But I just kind of think that if I got a problem with the sinks in my kitchen and they need to be fixed, am I going to go and look for someone that doesn't like to work with, pipe, doesn't like to work with plumbing? Someone that thinks that, well, you really should have a well out back anyway, instead of having all this plumbing in your house, inside your apartment. Now, why do I want someone like that in my house to fix my plumbing? No, I'm going to go and I'm going to look up somebody that, yeah, well, they did whatever type of engineering that it takes to work on plumbing, you know, indoor plumbing and stuff like that, and that they really enjoy what they do. Well, that's the kind of person that I am going to find to fix the plumbing in my apartment. See, that's the problem, like I said earlier in this conversation. We have gone through this whole thing. Well, actually, and I know that a lot of you folks, talking to you, specifically to you folks in the red states again, I know that you all really loved him, okay? And then a lot of you look upon him as some kind of God. But when Ronald Reagan, back in the 80s, started, you know, really slamming government and saying, oh, that's the worst thing, I'm from the government, that was not good. That was not good. See, you know, unfortunately, a lot of us forget you can be a damn fool and be located anywhere. You know how many, you got a lot of doctors who are, you know, you got a lot of doctors who are damn fools. You got a lot of lawyers who are damn fools. You got cops who are damn fools. You got preachers who are damn fools. You got athletes who are damn fools. A damn fool is a damn fool, no matter where he's at. But just because you got some basketball players that act foolish, are you going to just what, end basketball? That doesn't make any sense. Just because you have a problem with some of the things that you think the government has done, you're going to throw out the government? Come on, folks. We're better than this. And we need to start thinking again. And you know what? We need to stop hating each other so much. We need to stop being so fearful of each other. I hope I made a point. Maybe I didn't, but I'm going to keep trying, and hopefully eventually I'll get it right. Because all we can do in this life is try. And I don't know. I don't want to judge anybody. But I think that there are a lot of people in positions that need to try a mite harder, okay? Listen, bless you all. Take care. And this is Bob Gumbs, and I'll see you next week, Saturday, 3 o'clock. Take care. Excuse me. Is anybody in the sound room there? Yo.